Coach, just in watching the tape, what maybe stood out to you that you weren't able to kind of see live in game action, and kind of where things maybe went wrong on Saturday?
Well, I think the biggest thing, anytime, we lost decisively, right, in all three phases, and we owned that after the game, and we still own it this morning, and we flushed it, and we wiped it, and we've moved forward. And I think that's an important thing to do, yet there's really valuable learns, and there are some silver linings. I know sometimes it doesn't always feel that way or look that way to the naked eye. We pointed out some of those good things, and then we pointed out a lot of the things that, that we control, 3 personal fouls, 2 false starts, whether just not being in rhythm and in sync offensively. I mean, we go down and score the ball right out the gate and feel like we have some momentum rolling there and just unable to sustain things through a lot of what I do say is self-inflicted wounds. And I give Arizona a lot of credit for their scheme and how they attacked us, but it wasn't a ton of new things. Defensively, I thought, pretty much for 3 quarters really swung in there and kept us in the game. Early, after the 4th down miss, a pretty good stop and, just kept us off balance. I think they got us on 2 really big explosive plays in the first half, but there's some good red zone defense in there. So there's things to take away that you have to grow and get better for. But one thing we talked about this morning, I don't know about you, Jamie. You ever been in a fight?
Put me on the spot. No.
Okay. Well, I have. Okay, unfortunately, when I was young. But we're in a fight, and there's haymakers being thrown around. The best thing you can do is keep swinging back and knowing that everyone on your team is swinging at the same enemy. That's the best part about this building. Everyone's still swinging together, and that's what it's got to be going forward. We got knocked down. It's not a shame to get knocked down in a fight. Okay, it's a shame never to get in the fight, like you said you did, right? You never get in fights, right?
I'm a gentle person.
But you know what I'm saying? We got knocked down. We got to get up and respond to this, and it takes a strong mentality to do that. It takes great leadership to want to do that, and you can't go into the next game with your stinger bent. Okay, it got bent. Wipe it out. Get it back. We are a good football team. Okay, there's what we talked about. Man, that 4-0 team is still sitting in this room. That's the best part. Okay, yeah, that 0-2 football team is there too. So which one do we want to be? And which one can we be? And I believe that we can be a good team, and that's what we got to go show this week.
So I'm just catching strays this afternoon. I see how it is. I think one thing in particular we've seen the last 2 weeks is the rush 3 drop 8, and we've talked about it. But, and you said Saturday the run game is the best way to counter that. Was there anything else you saw on tape that's like, hey, this is how we can offset this besides just, running the ball efficiently?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we got to get back to getting the ball out decisively and quickly. I think you see a little bit of hesitation in camp sometimes, but like I said, the coverage-wise, we did get what we expected to get. So make the correct play. I think it's getting back to some of those basic plays. The explosive plays will come, be the delivery man in space, but it is still running the ball, right? And we showed a couple of times where we can do it when we're executing, communicated, and targeted right. So we got to get back to that. I think that is still the biggest solution and make guys come down and force it, because we came out in 11 personnel. They gave us the 4 down, went right down and scored. Okay, then they said, well, they're just going 11 to do 10 personnel stuff. Let's stay in the 3 down. And we got to be able to counter that by attacking them with the run game.
Coach, on Saturday night, you said that there's an open competition at all levels there.
Yeah.
The way I interpreted that is that's a message to your guys saying even if you're a starter, your job's not safe. Is that around those lines?
Well, I think that's life. Yeah, I think we're all competing every day for our jobs. That's the way I look at it, at least. And one of the core foundations of our program is competition. And the one way to raise all levels is to compete every day and never be satisfied. You should be competing against yourself every day. So that was the bigger message to me than just, hey, everyone's job's in jeopardy. That's lack of belief. That's not true. Okay, but it is, hey, if you are underperforming and more importantly not giving the effort required to be a Coug, man, you better strap your helmet up and you better attack every day like it's your last, right? Because I think that's an important piece of it. So we want a bunch of hungry guys out there that want to keep fighting and keep working to get better, and competition brings out the best in everybody. Because if you're in a competition and then you think you shouldn't be and now you're not going to give effort, that's not the right response, right? So I just think that's the important message of that competition rises everybody up, and competition to me is always a good thing.
When you looked at the film, was there an effort issue at all when you looked at it?
I'm not going to put that on our guys. I'll never say that. I think there was a lack of finish at times. Defensively, I felt that way in the fourth quarter. And I haven't felt that way since I've been here, and we've addressed that. But there's finish issues, okay? And I think finish is a form of habit, and you build those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all right? So sometimes winning can mask some of that stuff. Sometimes the playmaking can mask some of that stuff. So I'm just, some people are like, oh, we got to start over. We got to change everything. We believe in the process of what we do. We believe in the men in the room that are doing it. So we just keep attacking.
It seemed like some of your bigger chunk plays on the ground came when you pulled the tackle and the guard off to the right or vice versa. What kind of role could that have moving forward, just, in the running game?
Well, I think a counter, it works both ways. I thought, if we're going left to right, that would have been Brock and Christian. I did think Christian Hilborn played his best game since I've been here, which was a great response from the UCLA game. Another good example of what competition does, and I'm proud of that kid. I think we go both ways with that. Sometimes with the more movement stuff, I think the zone game can help you. I think when you go some odd front, I think the counter game is fantastic, and we got to be able to do both.
You guys tried a few different lineups on the offensive line with Christian on at the left tackle and thinking Make out. What kinds of lineups changes are you guys kind of tinkering with, and how much that on your mind?
You got that out? Are you good? Sometimes, like I said, competition is good. I think it's hard at the offensive line to not have 5 guys that are continually always practicing together. And unfortunately, that's been the story of our season so far. We're still working to find best and right, because that's our job. Even as we go throughout the wars of the season, being halfway through, who gives us the best chance and what's the right combination. So we felt at that moment sliding Brock over and bringing Essa back in, and I thought he responded to not playing in that first half correctly. So competition is real, and I think it's made those guys better. So we'll continue to look at what that best combination is this week and keep moving forward.
Coach, you mentioned last year about being a solutions-based leader.
Yeah.
You mentioned the lack of finish you saw in the fourth quarter there. We go back to this game last year against this team you're facing, kind of the similar thing there. What have you seen kind of throughout the tape, and what are you hoping to gain this week that will help you guys kind of be better on that front on Saturday?
Well, anytime I see something that's deficient in game day, I always go back to the practice film, right? And we watched a couple practices just as a coaching staff on Sunday, seeing where this comes from, right? And if it's not corrected in the moment or corrected in the film room, then it's allowed to happen. So finishing is a habit. And sometimes I told them, let's slow down the amount of plays that we're getting so we can have appropriate finish and make sure we're building the correct habits, right? And I'm a plays guy myself as an old DC, let's get the next play in. But, you see that a lot on defense. It's not as much a tackling issue, it's a leverage issue. We're losing leverage constantly, so now we're diving. Right? Those are correctable things. Those are tangible things that as a staff, and why we have coach on our shirt, we need to get better at, And the encouraging part moving forward is that we led in that game last year for 58 minutes, right? We didn't get the result that we wanted, but it should breathe some confidence in us that knowing we can go out and play with one of the best teams in the country, which is what Oregon is, and that's been proven. So, but it takes 60 minutes, not 58, to beat a really good team.
And I know we haven't quite asked you about them as of yet, but what have you kind of seen from Oregon this year, and especially coming off a tough loss on Saturday?
Well, I think obviously got a lot of respect for Coach Lanning. You can just see the detail and the effort and energy that these guys play with. This is a physical team on both sides of the ball. This isn't some talent team that just plays with fluff. It's not. They got 42 guys on their defensive depth chart. 40. That's every scholarship player. And they play a lot of guys, I'm telling you now. They rotate in probably at least 18 guys up front. So they're always fresh. They're constantly attacking. They're big and physical, so it's a real challenge. And then I think on the offensive side of the ball, they're very creative, create mismatches in different ways. I think 11 is one of the best receivers, in our conference and in the country, and Bo Nix is playing at a Heisman-type level. So the one major change probably from last year is they finally graduated some of those offensive line guys. That felt like they've been here forever. So they have some new pieces there, but other than that, it's a very experienced, polished team that's been through the wars. They're coached extremely well, and they play extremely hard. So the challenge is real, especially going to their place, but what an exciting time to get back on track for us. What a good time to go into a harsh environment and prove who we are and show our fight as a program. That's what we're looking forward to.
Coach, I'm just wondering, early on, obviously came out pretty aggressive with the 2-point and then the 4th down and the material throw. I'm just wondering, with those plays, with some of not quite having success on those, if you felt like it was more of a potentially being too aggressive, or if it was just like a lack of execution, and if it kind of changed your thoughts on the way you ran those.
No, I mean, we've talked a lot in this room, 4th and 1, really all over. We're going to be aggressive. We feel like we can get that, and that's a core belief that we have. We've gone for the 2-point play 3 times now. I mean, we feel like we're trying to create an advantage, and part of our offense is trick plays, and, I think there's a lot of things we could discuss about that play. Flipping it to the quarterback, sometimes they don't come up and get them as much as you would think, right? So, we got to be better in those situations. It did stymie some early momentum of the game. But that's what we're talking about. Like, we went into halftime down 14, not 50, right? And there's a body language and just a understanding to that we can come back from deficits, and we got to make sure that's in between our mind, like, hey, they swung first and we got to keep coming back. But it definitely did swing the momentum early of the game.
And then just kind of from this receiver room, obviously, Josh was a little bit banged up in that UCLA game, didn't have a huge impact in this last game, and also Lincoln kind of trying to filter back in. Just what you've seen from those two guys coming back health-wise, and how you think things might change going into this week, maybe being a little bit healthier?
Yeah, I mean, I want to give a big shout-out to Lincoln Victor. He went out there and gutted out, I think, 23 plays. But, man, it looked like he had a pop in his step. I mean, he's an energy giver on our team. I really mean that. And I think it was inspiring to have him back out there through extremely limited practice. So really credit to him to go out there and do that. We got to get back in rhythm and sync in between the wide receiver and the quarterback. And that's going to be our biggest focus this week. And having those guys full-time in practice will be huge. Hoping to get back Cooper Mathers this week, which I finally did realize that it's Mathers and not Mathers. He never told me. For like 3 years, he never told me until I asked him like 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to get that right, Cooper Mathers. Where were you on that one, Bill? That one got me. Okay, all right. So hoping to get him back this week, and that's some of that sync part, because when you're missing those 2 big pieces in the middle of your offense that own the middle of the field, it's good to get those guys back in the mix.
Jake, you've had trouble scoring points offensively the last 2 weeks, and this is, the fans sitting in the stands or watching on the TV wants to know how you're going to fix that. You talked about it just a moment ago, getting back on sync. Is it that simple, or are there other things on how you try to get the offense a little more productive as far as getting into the end zone?
Yeah, I mean, I think we knew going into the season we have to score points, and we're capable of that, and we have proven that. The best part, the message to anybody, and I don't hear all that noise, is it's the same guys, right, the same scheme, and we got to make sure we're putting them in the best positions to be successful. And I think when Lincoln was out, we did realize how important he is to the flow of the offense and what he gives us there in the slot, and the same thing with Coop. But, yeah, it just seems like it's been one thing or the other. When we have guys open, offensive line breakdown, okay? When we protect it well, we're not in sync with the quarterback on the read of the route and the timing. And some of it is what other people are doing too, and you got to give those guys credit. But that's why I got coach on my sleeve. We got to be able to adjust. I've always felt the best coaches bring value in game. And I got to do a better job of making sure and helping our staff, make sure we're putting our guys in the best situations to be successful. But make no mistake, we have confidence in our offense. I have confidence in Ben and what we're doing and how we're doing it. And, it's going to show up on Tuesday, and then it's got to lead into that on Saturday, because this is a real defense that attacks us in a million different ways, and it won't be easy, and we got to grind out some drives.
Maybe then fix wasn't the right word. Maybe is it more fine-tuned or get back to what you're doing before?
I think it's more get back to, because I don't feel like it's broken. I know the last 2 results have not been anywhere close to where we want it to be, and I think that's a reasonable thing to say, right? But it's still the same pieces to the puzzle that no one thought 3 weeks ago we weren't scoring points. Okay, so let's get back to that feeling. Let's understand the things that made us successful, right? And it was being decisive with the ball. It was getting the ball out quick and letting our guys work in space. Some of it was getting those guys back healthy and 100%, but we won't make any excuses for it. I know that. And I think our guys have done a good job of owning that and saying, hey, this is what I need to do. Here's my piece of the puzzle to get better, and we'll continue to work through that as we kind of come together as an offense.
Obviously, before you became the head coach, your specialty was in defensive coordinator and linebackers. I don't think I probably need to tell you that. You probably know it, but just curious your evaluation of the linebackers so far this year.
I think there's been some highs and lows. It has. I think the first thing I always look for is, are you commanding the defense? That's number one. That's got to be the start of that position. I think there's been some high moments in space, and then, we had a hard time tackling their tailbacks, and that's at all positions, and I give those guys a lot of credit. So there's been some really good moments and some things that we've identified that we need to get better at. And, Tariq's got to continue to get better as he continues to play. We got to get Ahmad back in the mix. We got to do it by committee. It'll never just be one guy. So I think as we kind of go through it, it's been mixed, mostly positive, and we got to get back to making plays that we're capable of making.
How much do you feel like Tariq's speed can maybe be utilized as a weapon in coverage? Just because it does seem like, to the naked eye, he's probably the fastest of the linebackers just in terms of kind of his skill set.
Well, they might debate you on that. They might debate. I'd have to get the official numbers on that. But I think he's getting better every week, and I think the more experience he gets, Coach Bull used to say every time you play a freshman, man, you just add another loss to the column. He was a big believer in that. But I think they're growing right in front of our eyes, and we're going to continue to put them out there in situations because I think his ceiling is high. And but it takes a mentality to learn what it's like to play underneath the lights at this level, and he's still learning that, and that's okay. So we're going to use him in different ways. I think his best thing, Jamie, is box. I think when he's box fitting and his eyes are right, he has that thump and that finish factor that you need to have at that position.
And then outside of Coop, any other injury notes? I know Bobby and Josh Erling didn't suit last week. Anything just more on them or anyone
we'll
else?
get kind of updates as the week goes on those guys. Some soft tissue injury stuff. So hopefully to get those guys headed in the right direction.
Last 2 weeks, your defense have played, it seems like a million snaps.
Yeah.
I mean, UCLA was like 98. I'm not sure what the number was for Arizona. But I'm wondering, how much of the offense struggling hands it over to the defense, and I'm wondering if there's any factor of just being out there for too long that's kind of wearing on those guys at all.
Well, I think it always is a factor and something you have to be aware of. But maybe I'm the only defensive guy in the country that would say that, well, then stop them. All right, you know what I mean? You have the same opportunity to get them off the field too, right? So I think we look at that, but we did identify after UCLA, we got to rotate some more guys. So you saw Boogie in there more. You saw Moku, who's now finally healthy a little bit for Jaden. So I think that's the biggest thing we identified kind of coming out of that UCLA game is that you can't play 95 plays and expect good results, and it does have lingering effects. I think maybe we saw some of that towards the end of that game last week. So we got to get back to maintaining the ball. The time of possession was slanted heavily against us, and we got to go out there and get some stops on third down, which we didn't get last week. And that starts with tackling better, keeping those guys behind the chains so we have some manageable third down plays.
And then on offense, I know you've kind of touched on Cam. It seems like he wants to accept a lot of responsibility for how these things go. I'm wondering, when he drops back and he sees 8 guys in coverage, is there anything he can do in that situation, or is it more on the receivers to create separation? Or I'm curious, when you, because usually you expect to face these eight-man coverages. Who is that on the most? I guess.
I think it's everything. I think play calling, coaching, progression, physicality, and still, like I said, having the ability to run the ball and making the right reads. I think that's where it still comes back to, and that's got to be number one and getting back in sync no matter what. I mean, Oregon will do a variety of different packages, right? So we got to be ready to attack all of them.
Coach, the last 2 weeks you've faced a couple of freshman quarterbacks, and then this week you're facing a guy, Nix, who's about to make, a record number of starts for FBS quarterbacks, so really experienced. I'm just wondering if there's anything in your preparation for a quarterback, in your looks defensively or your creativity that has to change just because of that level of experience.
Well, I just think you got to make sure you're sound because Bo Nix is going to beat you if you're not. And he can do it in a variety of different ways. He can do it with his legs. I mean, all these guys are different. There's probably not a lot of things that he hasn't seen. and he's played against us now. He has a bulk of reps and experience there. So you got to try to keep him in the pocket. They do a good job moving him. And last year we gave up, I believe, 17 explosive plays, right? We got to limit the explosive plays and make him earn it down the field. I think their tailback is tremendous, very versatile, hard to bring down, really great in space. And he does a good job of spreading the ball around and doing what he's asked to do. So really hard guy to sack because he's so powerful and strong, and he's got a breadth of experience that you can't match.
I'm just wondering, obviously, tough stretch of these 2 games, just from this Oregon game, the result that you kind of really want to see or maybe need to see from the team, just to let yourself know and the team know that you're kind of back on track, whether that's like a win or just specific production in certain areas?
I don't know if you're alluding to like a productive loss, because we don't talk about those things, right? We need to play our best, right? That's always been the standard here, and that's through coaches, myself first, right? Through our assistant coaches to our players. We need to play our best, and there's a lot of things that go into that and what that means. But that's what we need to be when we come off that field, is feeling confident that we've left it all out there, and we only get so many of these opportunities. You're guaranteed 12, and we're fighting for a 13th. So let's fight. Let's be our best. And we've worked a lot of hours to go out there and have some fun. That's the biggest thing we talk about too. Let's go out there and have a little fun. Competing's fun. The work is fun. The grind is fun, and you got to enjoy playing.
Jake, can you talk about the difficulties of playing at Autzen Stadium? We know how good Oregon is as a team, but that's a pretty tough place to play. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, first time there in 21. That team at that moment, we still had everything in front of us if we were to win out, and had a great opportunity. It was a battle back and forth. It's loud. We'll work with crowd noise this week for our offense to make sure they're ready for those things so we can execute on third down, and it's definitely a home field advantage. But some people walk in there and they get completely intimidated. You can't do that, right? We're an opponent. It should energize you. You should cherish the boos, right? You should want to go in there and compete your tail off. And, shock the country. No one think we can go in there and win the game but us. So let's go in there and be the way we're capable of playing, and let's play it for 60 minutes.